Good evening, folks. This is Alexander A. Manzoni, and we are live. I got my kitty down here, Sangha. Ooh. How's everyone doing this evening? Feeling pretty shitty, but got myself together enough. Ate half a chimichanga, and I decided gonna do a live stream tonight because I didn't do one earlier because I was feeling really sicker than usual. But there's different levels that I got to deal with, and sometimes you just got to take a self-care day. Hey, WM Kratom, how you doing? Gonna be reading some poetry here, and possibly a reading from one of my stories. This is called The Long Road. It has been hard going on this road, the end of which I, Mr. Owen Lounsbury, had no knowledge. Its serpentine windings knew no bounds. Foolhardy was I to take the family upon the perilous journey. Our covered wagons, we wished they were more suitably covered, especially during the momentous storms that froze our steps and fingertips along the many, many mountain passes through which we traversed. Each day was a trial, more so than what we ever imagined it would be at the start. But now, the end is in sight. A warm town with warm beds and hopefully warm hearts. And all we have to do is carry ourselves there without collapsing. Easier said than done. For much of our oxen had long succumbed to the unrelenting elements and had been the bulk of our meals for some time. The horses, well, they continued to run away on us. Obviously, they stood to chance their luck elsewhere. They must have surmised they'd be off on the run in the wild, and run until half dead and made into a gamey stew after an inopportune, not-so-clean break of the foreleg. On this fateful morn, our goal, it was finally in sight. There are wisps of chimney smoke rising in the far distance, the bustling thrum of townsfolk etching out their lives, their own slice of Americana that they could, in turn, leave to their own likely insufferable progeny. Our party, we could not wait to arrive, and in turn take the chill off our bones. We talked excitedly, making empty promises to one another as our senses detected the scent of burning fireplaces and the cooking pots held within. Our sick and infirm, they are brightening up as well as we near our immediate destination. Our hearts aflutter. We descend the final hill. Then, in the distance, we encounter a heightened wall built of logs. There were sentry towers every 100 yards. Is there supposed to be a fort here? Asked one of the men. Sven, who was more beard than man, truly. Unrolling the map, he quizzically gazes upon it, and so did I. This is strange, says Sven. There is no indication that this should even be here. A fortress of legend, suggests Sven's stable hand, Peter, red-faced with drink, and laden with the heavy bags that the lost horses would have been carrying. Nay, say I, 'tis more likely to be something altogether more menial and trivial. The federal government, well, they've been itching to get a better foothold in these remote Indian countries. That was when we see it, a flash from one of the towers. Then we hear it. The explosive fulmination, that of a cannonade. The panic was immediate. A stranglehold that put us into a chaotic scramble. Peter looks helplessly into my eyes as he thereupon explodes into a crimson mist. A dislodged shard of bone flung towards me and lodges underneath my right eye. Confused and in an unfamiliar state, I stumble to my knees, almost getting myself run over by a cart in the process. Hold your fire, damn it! I bellow, clutching at my pained visage. Hold your fire! There's children with us! Though it seems my voice, it does not carry over the insanity as the people before us continue. Sven gives me his hand. Come on, Owen, says he. I take hold of his rough extremities. He pulls me up, and then we run. Though, amidst the calamity, I can barely tell where we are going, whether we are running towards or away from imminent mortality. Instead of fleeing, Sven drags me over to the nursery wagon, which was repurposed when Doc Smith, not the actual doctor of the party, that was Doc Mulligan, who had kicked the bucket 2 months prior when he squatted to take a shit, and a Wolverine thought his Longfellow a delightful treat, R.I. penis, so that we could regroup and repurpose our efforts. There's a town 15 miles northwest of here, Sven utters. We'll never make it, say I, tears in the corner of mine eye, and thus freeze. We must, cries Sven. He then slaps me repeatedly before handing me babies out of the cart. Save the baby Tsar! Save the what? I add. Sven shoved a tiny bundle into my arms, and then another. Oh! I understood his intentions, though made no measure to express my intended cowardice in front of the bold, beefy Swede. I was not to be witnessed in such a state. So I did what was told of me. So did many of the others that weren't slain or hadn't run off in the confusion. Lucky for us, we had Sven. Ooh, never mind. For I saw him as he fell, clutching the babes in his arms in a final effort, twisting around so that he did not fall directly upon them. More screaming kinder added to the load as I took them upon me, with bullets and bombs at our backs. We wonder why our own kin go to measures to make those such as us mincemeat. Thank you. Whew. That was a narrative poem that I wrote at the beginning of February. I like writing those kinds of poems that tell stories when I'm not writing short stories or working on my novels. Granted, I haven't worked as much on my novels as I'd like to. I finished one novel in 2014 and then started writing another one. Finished that. Finished the rough draft, that is. Then started writing another one during the Trump years. And then started writing another one. Got to be like 600 pages. And then I started writing another one. So if there's one thing I have a problem doing, it's finishing what I start. That's why I like writing poems. They're a lot shorter. They can be anyway. Oh man. So how's everybody doing tonight? I am glad you could join me for this reading in the evening. I know a lot of people who have creative talents tend to suffer from depression. I do, being a bipolar sufferer. So I get the best of both worlds. I write a poem about depression. This is called Depression Emergence. Depression. It emerges from every orifice. I cannot believe I hadn't thought of this. But my mind, it was paralyzed by denial. When life gets better, I am getting worse. My course must be strengthened before I hit the landing. My dreams are of grand things, grander than they should ever be from one in such a station. We are a united nation of undesirables. The bitter taste is palpable on the tongue. Every time I run, I find myself in reverse. My coin purse runs empty with manic purchases. Fill the void with electronic ephemera, digital downloads. No one around can purloin this property like those fuckers back in Jersey. Taking TikToks with the cell phone camera. I smile and tell the world it'll be all right. But will it? Will we ever truly be? The missteps of the past, they become the misgivings of the future. Nothing is right, my brain tells me. All is lost. But is it? Well, that's a good question. Man, that was crazy. I put my all into this, and that's why it takes so much out of me. But I always love performing, even if it is in front of a camera by myself in my living room. It's going to be a reading from Judge, Coach, and Executioner. It's the story of a prison guard doomed in hell to coach a baseball team comprised of the worst serial killers in history. So he coaches the men's team, and then there's the ladies' prison. They coach the ladies' team, and they play a game head to head. And boy, it's wacky, wacky things ensue. Yes, it's a comedy. Very dark. That's how I like it. So, it might get a little bit hairy in here. But I'll try to edit out on the fly whatever TikTok will be banning me or giving me a strike for. Hey, I'm looking at you. When I passed, I found myself plummeting through a hole in the very fabric of the universe. I was brought through several layers of dimensions I never knew to exist or be possible. Faster I fell, becoming a blurred bullet passing through the whole of everything. The lessons I'd learned in life were reminding me of who I was, a bad man. A man who had made plenty of mistakes, some more substantial than others. The irony of it was that, as a prison guard captain, as an executioner of the great state of New York, I had made it the mission of my life to dole out punishments to those so sentenced. Perhaps I thought that it would offset the darkness dwelling in my soul, but it didn't. I crashed through the fiery atmosphere of an alien, unwelcoming place. Sulfur clouds hung in the air, yellow, red, green, and a few shades in between. The fabric of reality seemed to turn to liquid. It certainly was fluid. As I rocketed towards the ground, the world grew in size and proportion, though it was that of a place I wished I never experienced. On a mountain overlooking the fiery metropolis, it said, up on a titanic sign, one perhaps a mile or so across, "Welcome to Ninth Layer Estates. Population, your mom." The construction of the letters themselves were vaguely reminiscent of the Hollywood sign back in Los Angeles. And aside from the omnipresent state of self-indulgent sinfulness, as far as I knew, the similarities ended at that point. Looking back, I should have repented right then and there. But I had no idea what was in store for me. My mind came to a conclusion that my presence here had to be a mistake. Even though I had executed many, abused my wife, and killed more than one unlucky inmate while in the thick of things, I assumed that this must be a bum rap. Considering that, my brain told me everything was probably going to be okay. Okay? Yeah. Right. Nothing's okay. Nothing has been okay for a long fucking time. There was a massive structural complex beneath, belching smoke and fire from myriad crematory and industrial smokestacks and steam pipes, while skeletal dragons ridden by demonic businessmen and other such characters darted to and fro through it all. When they encountered one another, they broke out into aerial dogfights. The businessmen attacked one another with their briefcases. Thousands of documents and memos were lost to the unwelcome bosom of Gehenna, Tartarus, Abaddon, Hell, or Hades. Take your pick of which one you want to call it. It was on the shore of the lake of fire. Legendary. But to me it appeared to be an ocean. The roof opened up, and on the dome at the approximate center of the structure. At first, it appeared mechanical, but the closer I got to it, the more I noticed the teeth, the tongue, the roof of its awful mouth. Helpless figures were stuck between the cracked canines and molars. Many of those bodies were writhing around, screaming like no other scream I had ever experienced before. And that was saying a lot considering my extensive career in corrections. The dome started to close way before I had reached it. No way did I want to get stuck up there. No, thank you. I would be waiting forever for a gargantuan dentist to show up and scrape me out with the rest of the plaque and the other sorry sons of bitches stuck up there, smelling halitosis until the book of Revelations plays out to its apocalyptic conclusion. The mouth was closing quite slowly until I got close enough to it. Then it seemed like it was coming for me. Chomp! The mouth drew shut on the collar of my shirt. I cried, hanging there, kicking at the air. An ancient old man with a beard hanging past his ankles pointed at me and wheezed, "Shut up, you geezer," I said to him. "Mind your elders, sonny," said the geezer. "Geez, you kids are the worst these days." Kids? I was in my 50s when I gave up the ghost. 55 years of life. 55 years of getting fucked over. 55 years of violence. 55 years of lies. But something about hell, it gave my spirit a new sense of vitality. It was a vitality that was strangely missed upon this old bastard giving me the 3rd degree. Reminded me of that judge. What was his name? Oh yeah, Judge Wormscrotum of the 666th District. That greasy fuck, that slimy son of a bitch decreed I be sent here. Perhaps you will learn a thing or two about the value of proper decision-making. Contentious human, said the judge, looming over me in the courtroom with his 10,000-pound arsenic-powdered wig filled with gnashing, snake-like tendrils. My lawyer was a shirtless, obese, horned green monstrosity named Bacca Yarrow, Lord of Idiocy Esquire, also known as Bacca the Idiot, Bacca the Big, Bacca Fat, the big fat stupid bumbling bastard. He glanced over at me, sweat sheen thick on his pronounced caveman-like brow ridge.
"This won't be too bad for you, Ormsby. No, really,"
he informed me. But there was something about his tone I didn't like. Now, looking back, I know exactly what troubled my public pretender. He knew where I was headed. He knew he was lying to me. And that's part of the everyday process of simply being a demon. But hey, who am I to judge? No, that wasn't for me. I was only an executioner, a captain, a caretaker, keeper, husband, and friend. That was the prologue, chapter 1, Crimes of the Soul, Monday, March 17th, 2031. What is justice? I ask myself this all the time. I used to think I had a good handle on it, what it was, what it all meant, and that I was doing a fine job at administering it. Hell, I spent 30 years watching crooks and con men live and die at Sing Sing, 1944 to 1974. Before that, I did a solid 5 working at the state prison in Trenton, New Jersey, 1939 to 1944. I carried a long-standing family tradition. My father was a prison guard, and his father before him. That kind of job takes a toll on a man. It certainly took its toll on me, one Mr. Clifford Ernest Ormsby. And that's why I'm here, really. But what is here? That I am not entirely sure. I believe it is something resembling what good Christian folk would call hell. And I, a man tasked to watch over murderers and blankists, have found myself eternally doomed to this cesspit of madness and insanity. What are my crimes? As you can imagine, I am not a man who is charged with anything in life. I had killed more than one soul as a guard, and later as a state executioner. It was not a job I wanted, per se, but my superiors decided I had the character and professionalism to do just that. My crimes were not that of the state, nor the federal system. No, My crime was of the soul. My crime was wrath. So what? Those people deserved it. They deserved everything that they received by my hand and by their fellow inmates. I remember during a riot back in 47, a sex offender was set upon by 3 scoundrels in league with one another. They wanted a bit of action, and I let them have it. I'm not going to finish that paragraph because TikTok wouldn't let me do that. What was my justice? The business end of a shotgun, a shell for each of them, including the victim. Boom! 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 Nobody gave a rat's ass that I splattered them. Edit all over Block D2. It was for less degenerates to worry about. I didn't even get written up for it. Not that I never got in trouble. Fact of the matter was that my co-workers were even worse than I was, as far as the application of additional backroom justice went. So where are they now? I have no idea. This prison, it is a desolate, lonely place. The only souls I observe with mine eyes are the convicts. I receive notes that arrive in a cylinder through a network of tubes that end in my office. When I complete my daily tower of paperwork, I send it back over to the warden and the other demons up top. Or maybe this is all my own personal nightmare. Hey, Wealthy Religion, how you doing? Hope you're having a good evening. Doing a reading from my novel here. Why else would I end up with all these mutants? They are monsters who have all given up the ghost. Most were to the hand of capital punishment. Others, like Mr. Jeffrey Dahmer, were killed or died by other means. I once told Mr. Dahmer that the man who took him out in the shower should have been given a goddamn medal. To which he shrugged and said, "Yeah, you're probably right." I guess that's my Dahmer voice. Mr. Dahmer's presence was a reflection of just how long I have been here in service, and there's still an entire eternity to go. Why was I chosen to watch over such an awful collection of miscreants? I ask myself this every day, beating my brains out. I came to the conclusion that the good Lord must have a real funny sense of humor. Why else would he squirrel me away with the worst killers my country had ever borne witness to? Was it because I was so good at keeping these scum suckers in line? No. If I couldn't keep them from butchering each other in life, why would death be any different? This stream of conscious rambling goes on in my mind all the time. I ask too many questions that can't be answered while struggling to maintain my concentration in the gloom. Perhaps that is why I am here, to torture myself for the rest of forever while these assholes get to live out their depraved fantasies on one another. I wish there were more guards to help. As soon as I pull J.J. Holmes off of Charles Manson, Albert Fish is playing grab ass with the Sacramento Vampire. And by grab ass, I mean he would... I'm not going to finish that paragraph because, yeah, TikTok wouldn't like that one either. I wish they would, those up top, bring in a public relations team. That way they could perhaps find a method to sterilize the daily routine around here with their euphemisms and marketing angles. It's not a house of horror. No, it's an establishment for the examination and study of brutality for the betterment of society as a whole. And although I will admit that this place lacks that true sense of institutionality, it lacks everything except for the cells, the souls, and a few bare departments. I am the caretaker, the keeper. I am the executioner. I am the iron fist of retribution. My job is to make sure everything runs as smoothly as possible. And of course, it runs about as smoothly as a bowel movement. It doesn't get any easier. In fact, I believe it has been getting worse It really doesn't help that the longer I remain here, the more of a connection I establish between me and some of the worst human beings who have ever exploded headfirst, screaming out of a wound. The more I seem to identify with them. So what does that mean? It means I am softening. It means that I found myself forging a bond. Not that it doesn't help. It's always good to have a few of the cons ready to get a few things off their chests. Not good for the psyche, but good for the management of the prison populace. I feel bad that I feel bad for a number of these vile dung heaps. But that was what happened when I was alive and working at Sing Sing. What I sowed in life, I continue to reap after death. And what a death it was. The bastards, they got me while I was transporting them to the Reverend for some light Bible study. Looking back, I now realize the only reason they were so enthusiastic about redemption was so that they could make plans and trade hidden contraband during the interminably long-winded church services. The last thing I remember before death was Father Bigliacco kneeling down over me, making the sign of the cross. It gave me strength, though now I have access to the records. I know that Padre was just as evil as any of the other men sent to rot here. He was a child blank, a thief, and a liar. His blessing was, in fact, a desecration. So why wasn't he down here? The Lord works in mysterious ways. My hope is that he, in fact, is getting his comeuppance tenfold. But who's to say what should and shouldn't happen? All I know really is what they tell me in the memos, in the notes. It always says for me to remain objective and professional, which I find is easier said than done. If I submitted to my basest instincts, I would go to every one of these cells and torture each prisoner until there was nothing left. Make them all fall into dust and ash. Separate their bodies piece by piece, bit by bit, cell by cell. I'm getting carried away with myself. The memos tell me not to. They tell me that it will poison my soul. And if I got past a certain point, I will become incarcerated in the same manner as they. I'm already in here. Does it really matter which side of the bars I am on? Yes, it does. Good gravy. These foul memories dawn upon me at the worst times. I don't know why. Maybe it's because I'm obsessive. But I remember the smell of the Rosenberg as they cooked in Old Sparky, and it seems odd they are nowhere to be found down here. And again, this place is purpose-built for the killers. But spies, they are a whole different breed. My business is not to determine whether or not someone is guilty of treason. Lousy turncoats. My business is to maintain the status quo and to keep everyone from making each other's afterlives more miserable than they already are. The sickly sweet smell of Julius and Ethel, it follows me past. The feces and urine and the hanging miasma of cheap moisturizing lotion. Everyone here is dead, but they sure use the toilet an awful lot. Shit out enough of your sins and you will become a new man, perhaps. I don't know. What I do know is that my sanity is being tested. What can a man do to stay alive in a position like this without fraternizing with the enemy? There's only so much you could say to them, people like Ted Bundy. Oh, he's friendly enough when he wants to be. He makes you almost think that he might be normal, but he's not. Nobody here is. Not me, not the dead rat stinking up the kitchen, not the fly larva perpetually eating away at Richard Ramirez's foot. Everything here is in a state of decay. Even the concrete is rotting away. I know how strange that sounds. But if you'd like, utilize dream logic for what transpires behind these walls. Just because something did or is happening doesn't mean that it happened. But it doesn't mean that it won't happen either. We watch movies sometimes. I had to ban Inception. It was too much for the inmates to handle. Too much for me to handle. Lately, we've been moving through a library of 90s romantic comedies. Personally, I'd rather be watching Doris Day do the Lindy Hop with Rog Hudson's Pecker. Never mind you that... I'm going to leave out that paragraph. Maybe I am intolerant, but you would be too if you had to see what goes on in here, especially after hours. I'm going to leave that one out too. There is no love here, and there was little love in my heart before death. I don't blame my wife, Muriel, for leaving me. She said I was married to my job, not to her. When I cleaned her clock, she blasted me twice with a .22 caliber, then divorced me. Took the kids, too. I survived, barely, but never saw them again. I didn't want to, not even to save face with the parents. They never gave a crap about me anyway. But whatever happened to them, my folks, hopefully they are in their own version of whatever hell this is. But their hell would be more like them trapped together on the couch without a means to get up, surrounded by foreigners speaking broken English to them, talking over the TV. They hated each other. And I hate people like that. People who can't come to terms with who they really are. Boy, howdy, I have been coming to terms with a lot. There's not much else to do here except make my rounds, pull people off one another, serve food, make repairs and whatnot. I said to myself, I would not get sucked into this prison drama. But that is exactly the opposite of what happened. All the prisoners are kept apart from one another, except in certain situations. There are little communal events. The folks at the top stress that they are necessary. I am not sure why. Wouldn't it be better off to simply leave these murderers where they're at? That way no one would be able to cause much trouble. But no, I have to corral them. I have to corral them one at a time to the Great Hall. Then I handcuff them to their chairs. They still find ways, though, to get into trouble, to get away from me and do the unthinkable. I tell myself not to warm up to them. It is becoming increasingly difficult as they are my only human interaction. Don't get soft. This was a message from the memos. It was typed out on nearly all of them. Was it the devil who was telling me all of this? Or was it God? It could be neither. It could be my own deranged mind coming up with all kinds of things in the solitary process of the beyond. Solitary darkness of the beyond. I taped a few of the better pictures up on my office wall. It reminds me of who these people are and what the essence of their being is. I find myself staring into the yellow eyes of a French circus clown for hours on end. Eventually, I can't stand it. I rise from my creaky chair and tear the thing down. I throw it in the trash and spit on it. For a moment there, I almost felt bad for the man. This is exactly why this job is so dangerous. Would I become one of them in time? Or was I one of them already? I bet that's why it hurts so much. I'm teetering on the edge between law and disorder, pacifism and bloodlust. If only those up top subjugated me to a psychological battery of tests, they would quickly determine how far I've progressed on the criminal spectrum. I took out a load of books on psychoanalysis from the prison library. I read them, but wasn't able to wrap my head around all of it. The pages I really needed had been torn out and used as cigarette rolling papers. Where were they getting all this contraband? I certainly wasn't bringing it in. But I wouldn't be surprised either if this was all an experiment to see what it would take to break me. This building is a microscopic hut as well as a gargantuan sprawling complex. It shifts and contorts with the passage of time. I am still discovering new rooms, new wings. They are revealed to me when the situation calls for it. I dare not question my superiors, although I am privately. This little document right here is for me. It is for my understanding of what is happening. For I am as in the dark as the rest of these loathsome rats, these roustabouts and roaches. Thank you. That was a reading from Judge, Coach, and Executioner, my upcoming unpublished novel. 567 pages. Wow. And how many did I read? 7. Boy, that would be take a long time to do all that. But once I get an idea for something, I just have to write it down. I keep notes in my phone, and I have notepads, but, anytime I get an idea, I just write it down. And the idea for this was just, what if a prison guard had to be a prison guard in hell for a bunch of serial killers? And then I decided to make him a coach and have them play baseball against each other. Why not? I hope you enjoyed that. I know it would be pretty rough for many of your sensibilities. It's not a very nice story about nice things with nice people. It's dark, okay? It's pulled from the darkness of my soul, ripped out of my heart and my brain, mashed together and whipped in a ninja chopper with a little bit of guacamole. Well, I hope get this thing edited and finished and all that. Get them all finished. I have so many novels that I've written that I have haven't finished, or B, haven't finished editing. It's tough, especially being bipolar, and then just my concentration is terrible. I just get from one thing to another. So I think I'm going to finish this off with a poem. This is called Putin's Putting Us All in a Serious Situation. This is about the Ukraine conflict, or war, if you want to think about it like that. It has begun, the invasion of eastern Ukraine. No more fucking around. Last time Putin pretended his secret operation was, secret. But the signs were there. Russian weapons on the battlefield in Donetsk. Russian soldiers in disguise, allegedly attempting to start a revolution. I think we all know what's between the lines when Putin the punk denies something. And boy, did he deny a lot during the Trump years. And how about that? Former President Dickhead was commending the move before it had officially commenced. The planes, the tanks, the armies are rolling in. So what do? In all honesty, we should bomb the living hell out of you. We Americans, we outnumber them more than 2 to 1. Remember that when your spirit gets shaken. It is doubtful that China would want to get too involved. After all, they are one of our principal trading partners. Why compromise a good thing? Marvel movies and the lot to defend a sneaky land grab by a twisted, tyrannical shitface. The space race has been over for a long time, so of course something else had to replace the ex-KGB agent's ambitions. A cruel and calculated move. What does this joker have left to prove? A reuniting of all the Soviet satellite states and then some? Seems pretty dumb to me. But then again, I am only a singular American, and what I can do to help at this time sure seems limited. A perfect opportunity for other Americans to do what some do best. Swoop in, start a charity, collect donations, and keep most, if not all, the money for yourselves. So no, do not ask me for the pennies at the bottom of my pocket. For all I know, they'll be funding one of Putin's solid gold pocket rockets, or another superliner 5-star cruisers, like the one that departed so suddenly from Germany. Glory be to the soldiers on the front lines. It is time to repel the pestilence from your home. Well, thank you, folks. That was a good one. I really appreciate you joining me. This has been Manzoni Livestream. Please join me again soon. Thank you very much, and have a great evening.